Thanks, Fiona. So we're going to talk to you about a registry that was developed before the ERN skin registry, and then at the end we'll just explain the ERN registry for you. So first of all, epidermolysis bullosa is a rare genetic skin condition that affects the skin and the mucous membranes, and it causes blisters with slightest friction. There's about 300 people in Ireland with the condition, and it ranges in severity. There's 4 different types, and within that there's loads of subtypes depending on the genetic mutation. Debra Ireland, for which I'm the head of research, represents people with EB in Ireland, and we also advocate for services and supports for people. And we work with an international network of Debras and other EB charities to drive research into treatments and cures for this, and we've done this for years. And early on, when we were establishing the foundations and how best to do this, we realised that a registry was vital for us. Particularly for us in Ireland, we have a very small cohort, and we want to make sure that those people are counted in the bigger picture for access to treatments and research and clinical trials and so on. So we really wanted to expand our pool, and this is where we worked with NISR to develop an EB registry for Ireland, in the hope that then it could feed into international registries. So the registry was launched back in 2020, and Lara will go into the details of it. But for us as a patient registry, we've already used the data in a study this year to generate evidence to enhance policy and healthcare planning in the Irish system. And we hope then in future that we can use it then to improve diagnostics and treatment, facilitate research and treatment development, and hopefully accelerate drug developments and approvals for us. There is currently no treatment for people with EB in Ireland that has been approved in Ireland, but there are some in the pipeline, so it's really important that we get these registries up and running. So I'll hand you over to Lara, who will talk to you about the NISR registry, and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Sinéad. So I am the registry coordinator with NISR. NISR is a not-for-profit, and our goals and our aim are to shepherd skin disease registries, both in Ireland and internationally. We work across a few different skin conditions, and we have a lot of in-house experience with building registries right from the beginning, choosing your data set, working with software providers, ethics, data protection, and then launching them in clinical centres, analytics, and managing the registries throughout their long lives, hopefully. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we set up registries, and then in particular the EB Irish registry. So the first stage is the planning of our registries. So essentially it's a huge amount of research to build a stakeholder list and to connect with other researchers in the field to make sure that you're gathering the right data and looking at other international groups. Working with PPI is also important right from the beginning. Next, we have selecting our data variables and performing harmonization studies on this work. So for the data variables, in our registries, the only mandatory data is the consent information. So that's the smallest group of data. Without this, no data entry is possible. And everything else beyond that is then what we call our expected data. So this data is the expected information which is collected as per the patient's standard of care. It is key for your research goals to test your hypothesis, and we recommend providing protocols to the group so that you can encourage people to collect that data. It can often be quite challenging for centres to collect the whole range of expected data, so you don't always expect to get all of it, and the patients can still continue if that's not possible. For the Irish EB registry, an eDelphi consensus exercise was performed years ago. This is a system where subject matter experts came to a consensus using workshops and data reviews of different sources to decide on what the data set we would collect in the Irish EB registry would be. There were 11 different international sources reviewed in addition to these eDelphi workshops. And this harmonization of our data set is ongoing. So there's a lot of work in making sure that it is always adapting and keeping up with the current needs of research. As one of our colleagues mentioned earlier, it's important to collect validated questionnaires. However, they can be quite expensive. And keeping in mind that the data must be clinically relevant, measurable disease features, for clinical trials use and for post-authorization studies, which is a big use for registry data. After this, NISR will help work with the platform designers, and we recommend working with someone who has a lot of experience collecting clinical data, who are going to store your data to the correct ISO standards, work within GDPR. There's a lot of testing involved at this stage to build your variables into the data collection system, and keeping in mind the data entry burden that you're going to be passing on to the clinical team. In parallel with this, you also have the data governance and executive committee set up, making sure you have your oversight committees that are going to decide how the registry is going to grow and also how the data is going to be used. And that brings us on to the setup stages, so the data protection, working with the data protection officer. By the way, if anybody wants these slides afterwards, I'm happy to send them on to anyone if you need them. I'm kind of flying through things here. So your data protection officer is going to help you write your DPO, and they're also going to help you work with your ethics application. As our first colleague who was speaking today mentioned as well, in Ireland, it's particularly difficult to get ethics approval for registries. Each centre is individual. They require their own applications, their own consent forms, their own patient information leaflets. And also it can take a really long time, 2 to 4 months minimum, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. And it's also important to build into your plan, if you want to grow a registry, that you should expect to submit amendments every 2 to 3 years. So it's sort of an ongoing conversation with ethics as you kind of shepherd your registry along. Hopefully you get ethics approval, and then you can go on to your contracts, setting up your data sharing agreements, processing, getting access to the data and planning the budgets that you need for that data entry to be performed, and then getting into training and setting up your actual sites then, which hopefully will be quite easy then at the last step once you've done all that. So the Irish EB registry has gone through all of these steps and more. It is now running at a paediatric and an adult site in Ireland. In the Irish EB registry, we collect about 250 potential variables, and we've enrolled 75% of the paediatric EB population and 10% of the adult. You can see the kind of demographics in the smaller pie charts down there. We've got a pretty even gender breakdown across the data. And then our final larger pie chart is how the diagnosis subtypes break down. And as you'd expect, we have a lot of simplex patients and then dystrophic after that. So now I'll pass you back to Sinéad.
Thank you. So from a patient organisation perspective, when we took on this job of creating our own registry for EB, we did not realise how colossal the job was going to be. We thought it would be very easy. We didn't think it was going to cost so much. So our biggest challenge straight away was funding, and not funding just to get the registry up and going, but funding to keep it sustainable and making sure that everything was done independently and the governance and everything. So we realised very quickly that we needed help. And we reached out to a number of different organisations. The Dublin Skin and Cancer Hospital Charity was fantastic at funding the registry and giving us funding for a number of years to get it established and up and running. And without that, I don't think we would still have a registry today. We'd still be trying to faff around with all the bits and pieces that we're supposed to cover. And for us as well, we realised very quickly that we needed expertise as well. So instead of trying to take on the data privacy, the ethics, the governance and everything ourselves, we reached out to Cystic Fibrosis Registry Ireland, who has a fantastic national registry for years, and we asked them to help us. And we worked with them over the first few years, and then that turned into clinicians getting involved, and then the establishment of NISR, which is an independent charity that manages the data for EB. So it's the data is not sitting with the patient organisation, it's not sitting with the clinic, it's independent, which has been fantastic for us. So we definitely couldn't have done it without those two organisations. Also for us as a patient organisation, where we could help was patient recruitment, and we were able to reach out to our community of people with EB in Ireland and really educate them on what a registry was. And we created a lovely video which we have on our website. You're more than welcome to have a look at it, and you're more than welcome to take the raw file if you want to educate people in your community with the condition just on what a registry is and why it's vitally important for them to participate in the registry. So by the time Fiona came to onboarding them on the registry, they had a good idea of what it was and how important it was, and we got a good sign up to the EB registry. So then eventually the ERN Skin Registry caught up with us, and they set up their own registry called the ERN ERIS Registry. And this is not just an EB registry, it's a registry for all cases of rare dermatological diseases. And they worked with NISR and other international EB registries as well to understand how we capture EB data. And that registry went live there just a few months ago on the 27th of February. So we have 155 HCP members of the ERN Skin, and we're just starting the process, or they're just starting the process of data sharing agreements with each of the different clinical centres. So we imagine that will take a bit of time as well to set up. And we're hoping within our Debra international organisation as well to, again, we have a Debra research organisation that's recently been set up in Germany, and we're hoping to set up some kind of an international registry for all patients with EB around the world. We're not sure what that's going to look like at the moment, but they will work with the ERNs to make sure that they capture the same information as those as well. So a quick introduction. Again, myself and Lara are around for questions later on, and you can come talk to us as well during the day. We'll be around during the coffee breaks. Thank you.